Does Mary's vision of hell harmonize with what the Bible teaches?
The mysterious third secret of Lady Fatima, a prophecy that has been kept under wraps for more than 100 years, is finally about to unfold. The past prophecies of Lady Fatima about World War I and persecutions all came to pass, and people are scared that the third prophecy, which is scarier, is showing signs that it is about to happen. The question now is, are we prepared for whatever's about to come? Join us as we unravel the third prophecy of the Lady of Fatima and the signs that show they are about to happen. The Three Secrets of Fatima is a series of apocalyptic visions and prophecies that were given to three young Portuguese shepherds, Lady Fatima and her cousins Jacinta and Francisco Marto, by a Marian apparition on the 13th of May, 1917. The children claim to have been visited by the Virgin Mary 6 times between May and October 1917, and the apparition is now commonly known as Our Lady of Fatima. Lady Fatima stated that on the 13th of July 1917, around noon, the Virgin Mary entrusted the children with 3 secrets. 2 of these secrets were disclosed in 1941 in a document written by Lady Fatima at the request of José Alves Correa da Silva, the Bishop of Leiria, to help with the publication of a new edition of a book on Jacinta. When asked by the bishop in 1943 to reveal the third secret, Lady Fatima hesitated for a brief period, as she was not yet convinced that God had authorized her to act. The bishop instructed her to document it in October 1943. Lady Fatima compiled it by writing down the secret and sealing it in an envelope, with instructions not to open it until 1960, when it would appear clearer. The third secret was made public by Pope John Paul II in 2000, and it seems the third prophecy is about to happen this 2024. Various Catholic interpretations suggest that the 3 secrets pertain to hell, World War I and World War II, and the persecutions of Christians in the 20th century. Out of the numerous Marian apparitions that the Catholic Church has examined, only 12 have been granted official approval, with 9 of them taking place between 1830 and 1933. The birth of Lady Fatima. Lady Fatima, born on the 22nd of March, 1907, although her actual date of birth is the 28th of March, was the youngest child of Antonio dos Santos and Maria Rosa Ferreira. Both of her parents hailed from Aljustrel and got married on the 19th of November, 1890. The Santos family, despite being peasants, was not impoverished and owned land in various locations such as Montelo, Ortiga, Fatima, Valinhos, Quebeco, Charneca, and Cova da Iria. Lady Fatima had 6 siblings. Her father, Antonio, was described by Lady Fatima as a hard-working and generous man who introduced her to Catholicism. Contrary to popular belief, he believed his children when they claimed to have seen Mary. Although not a heavy drinker, Antonio enjoyed socializing at the tavern. Due to a disagreement with the local parish priest, whom he wished to avoid, he attended church in a neighboring town. Maria Rosa, Lady Fatima's mother, possessed literacy skills, yet she did not impart reading knowledge to her offspring. She had a penchant for religious texts and narratives. Routinely, she conducted catechism sessions for her children and the children of her neighbors. According to her mother, Lady Fatima tended to echo everything she heard, akin to a parrot. De Marchi described Lady Fatima's appearance as follows. She was not a particularly attractive child. The only notable features of her countenance, which was not entirely unappealing, were her 2 large black eyes that peered out from beneath thick eyebrows. Her dense, dark hair was parted down the middle and cascaded over her shoulders. Her nose was somewhat flat, her lips full, and her mouth wide. Lady Fatima excelled as a captivating narrator. She crafted both religious and secular songs with engaging melodies and lyrics. Additionally, she penned a poem dedicated to Jacinta, which is included in her memoirs. At the age of 6, Lady Fatima received her first communion, which was 4 years earlier than usual. Initially, the parish priest was hesitant to allow her to receive communion at such a young age. However, Father Cruz, a visiting Jesuit missionary, spoke with Lady Fatima after finding her in tears that day and concluded that she had a better understanding of the sacrament than many others. After her first confession, Lady Fatima prayed before the altar of Our Lady of the Rosary and claimed to have seen the statue smile at her. This experience had a profound impact on her, leading her to lose interest in worldly things and feel most at home in solitude. where she could reflect on the joy of her first communion. By the age of 8, Lady Fatima was already tending to her family's sheep, accompanied by other children from the village. Why was Lady Fatima given the opportunity to see the apparitions? What exactly was special about her that she was given such scary secrets? The first secret. Lady Fatima was enrolled in the school of the Sisters of St. Dorothy in Villar, near Porto, when she was 14 years old. Later, in 1928, she became a postulant at the Dorothean convent in Tui, which was located just across the border in Spain. Throughout her life, Lady Fatima continued to have private visions and periodically reported them. In the mid-1930s, the Bishop of Leiria encouraged Lady Fatima to write her memoirs, to provide further details about her cousins and the apparitions of 1917. It was mentioned as early as July 1917 that the Lady of the Apparitions had entrusted a secret to the children, which had both positive and negative implications. However, it wasn't until Lady Fatima's third memoir, written in 1941, that she delved deeper into the content of the secret. In doing so, she followed the example of Melanie Calvat, a French visionary who had seen Our Lady of La Salette in 1846 and had written down the secrets from that event almost 20 years later. Lady Fatima stated that the secret consisted of 3 parts, with the first 2 being revealed in 1941. The third part, however, was not documented until January 3, 1944. In her third memoir, 1941, Lady Fatima documented the first secret as revealed to her and her cousins by the lady during the initial apparition. It reads, "Our Lady showed us a great sea of fire which seemed to be under the earth. Plunged in this fire were demons and souls in human form, like transparent burning embers, all blackened or burnished bronze, floating about in the conflagration, now raised into the air by the flames that issued from within themselves together with great clouds of smoke, now falling back on every side like sparks in a huge fire, without weight or equilibrium, and amid shrieks and groans of pain and despair which horrified us and made us tremble with fear. The demons could be distinguished by their terrifying and repulsive likeness to frightful and unknown animals, all black and transparent. This vision lasted but an instant. How can we ever be grateful enough to our kind Heavenly Mother, who had already prepared us by promising in the first apparition to take us to heaven? Otherwise, I think we would have died of fear and terror." The second apparition was more scary than the first. The second secret. On the 13th of July 1917, the children were initially given a partial revelation of the second secret, which pertains to the devotion to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. This secret includes various prophecies, such as the prediction that World War I would come to an end and a warning of another war during the reign of Pope Pius VII if mankind continued to offend God and if Russia did not convert. The second half of the secret emphasizes the importance of consecrating Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. The second secret reads, "You have seen hell, where the souls of poor sinners go. To save them, God wishes to establish in the world devotion to my Immaculate Heart. If what I say to you is done, many souls will be saved and there will be peace. The war is going to end, but if people do not cease offending God, a worse one will break out during the pontificate of Pope Pius XII. When you see a night illumined by an unknown light, know that this is the great sign given you by God that He is about to punish the world for its crimes, utilizing war, famine, and persecutions of the Church and the Holy Father. To prevent this, I shall come to ask for the consecration of Russia to my Immaculate Heart and the communion of reparation on the first Saturdays. If my requests are heeded, Russia will be converted and there will be peace. If not, she will spread her errors throughout the world, causing wars and persecution of the Church. The good will be martyred. The Holy Father will have much to suffer. Various nations will be annihilated. In the end, my Immaculate Heart will triumph. The Holy Father will consecrate Russia to me, and she shall be converted, and a period of peace will be granted to the world." However, the second prophecy remained undisclosed until August 1941, which was after the commencement of World War II. Some advocates of the Fatima prophecies contend that the undisclosed information did not specify that the war had to commence in Europe, and that Japan had already invaded China in 1937 during the reign of Pius II, a period that many historians in China and other Asian regions consider as the actual beginning of World War II. This perspective is also partially supported by certain Western historians. Detractors argue that various conflicts such as the Russian Civil War, the Irish War of Independence, the Chinese Civil War, the Italo-Ethiopian War, and the Spanish Civil War demonstrate that the prophecy of one war ending and another beginning does not necessarily indicate divine inspiration. Are wars expected to happen no matter what? Does this mean that the prophecy of Lady Fatima is mere speculation? Some supporters of the prophecy emphasize that the second undisclosed information predicted a war more devastating than World War I, not just any armed conflict. Furthermore, in terms of the conversion of Russia, there was already significant revolutionary activity in Russia before the Bolshevik Revolution, as evidenced by the earlier February Revolution in 1917 and the presence of communist and anarchist movements. In response to the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine, Pope Francis declared his intention to consecrate Russia and Ukraine to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, a ceremony that took place on March 25, 2022. Before we get to the third secret, let's look at the miracle of the sun. The sun dance. The miracle of the sun, also referred to as the miracle of Fatima, is a sequence of extraordinary occurrences that reportedly took place on the 13th of October 1917 in Fatima, Portugal. A large gathering had assembled in response to a prophecy made by three shepherd children, namely Lucia Santos, Francisco, and Jacinta Marto. These children had foretold that the Virgin Mary would appear on that specific date and perform miracles. Numerous witnesses testified to witnessing remarkable solar activity during the event, including the sun seemingly dancing or zigzagging in the sky, moving closer to the earth, and emitting vibrant, multicolored light. According to these accounts, the phenomenon lasted for approximately 10 minutes. In November 1917, the local bishop initiated a canonical investigation into the event. The purpose was to examine the testimonies of witnesses and determine whether the alleged private revelations from Mary aligned with Catholic theology. The investigating priest was particularly swayed by the consistent reports of extraordinary solar phenomena provided by secular journalists, government officials, and skeptics present at the gathering. On the 13th of October 1930, Bishop José da Silva declared the miracle to be worthy of belief, officially authorizing the veneration of Our Lady of Fatima within the Catholic Church. During a gathering held on the 13th of October 1951 in Fatima, Cardinal Federico Tedeschini, the papal legate, informed the massive crowd of 1 million attendees that Pope Pius XIV himself had personally witnessed the miracle of the sun from the Vatican Gardens on the 30th of October, the 31st of October, the 1st of November, and the 8th of November 1950. This extraordinary event, along with the associated prophecies, has had a profound influence on the religious practices of numerous Catholics. The miracle and its related accounts have been subject to extensive scrutiny from both sociological and scientific perspectives. Critics argue that the testimonies provided by eyewitnesses were inconsistent and contradictory. They propose alternative explanations, such as the possibility that prolonged gazing at the sun may have deceived the witnesses' senses, leading them to perceive something unusual as anticipated. Is the sun dance real, or just a fragment of people's imaginations? Francisco and Jacinta, the youngest children of Manuel and Olimpia Marto, had a typical upbringing for Portuguese village children during that time. They were unable to read or write. According to their cousin Lady Fatima's memoirs, Francisco had a calm nature. Francisco and Jacinta had some musical talent and enjoyed spending time alone in contemplation. Jacinta was affectionate, possessed a beautiful singing voice, and had a talent for dancing. Despite their experiences, their core personalities remained unchanged. Francisco preferred to pray in solitude, believing it would bring comfort to Jesus for the sins of the world. Jacinta, on the other hand, was deeply impacted by a terrifying vision of hell shown to them during the third apparition. She became convinced of the importance of saving sinners through penance and sacrifice, as instructed by the Virgin Mary. Both Francisco and Jacinta practiced rigorous self-discipline and self-sacrifice to fulfill this mission. However, the siblings fell victim to the devastating 1918 influenza pandemic that ravaged Europe that year. In October 1918, Jacinta informed Lady Fatima that Mary had appeared to her and promised to take them to heaven soon. Despite their declining health, they persisted in walking to church to engage in Eucharistic devotions and spent hours in prayer, following the instructions given to them by the angel. Francisco refused hospital treatment on the 3rd of April 1919 and passed away at home the following day. Jacinta, believing her fate was sealed, was transferred to Urim Hospital in a desperate attempt to save her life. Her condition deteriorated rapidly, leading to a move to the orphanage of Our Lady of Miracles in Estrela, Lisbon, before undergoing a risky operation due to purulent pleurisy. Despite excruciating pain during the procedure, Jacinta remained steadfast, convinced that her suffering would aid in the conversion of sinners. On the 19th of February 1920, Jacinta requested Holy Communion and extreme unction from the hospital chaplain, foreseeing her imminent death. Despite the chaplain's reassurances, Jacinta passed away the following day, fulfilling her prophecy of dying alone. After their death, they were canonized. Do they deserve to be canonized? The process of canonization for the siblings began in 1946. Jacinta's face was found to be incorrupt when exhumed in 1935, while Francisco's had decomposed. However, by 1951, when Jacinta was exhumed again for reburial in the basilica, she had also begun to decompose. In 1937, Pope Pius II decided that causes for minors should not be accepted for canonization due to their inability to fully understand heroic virtue or practice it repeatedly, both of which are essential for the process. However, in 1979, the Bishop of Lady of Fatima requested an exception for Francisco and Jacinta, who had died at ages 10 and 9 respectively. Over 300 bishops wrote to the Pope, stating that the children were known and admired for their sanctity, and that favors were received through their intercession. They also emphasized the pastoral necessity of their canonization for the children and teenagers of that time. In 1979, the Congregation for the Causes of Saints held a general assembly to discuss whether children could display heroic virtue. After much debate, they concluded that some children could be spiritual prodigies in a supernatural way, similar to those with exceptional talents in music or mathematics. Pope John Paul II declared them venerable in 1989, and on the 13th of May 2000, they were declared blessed in a decree from the Congregation for the Causes of Saints. Let's unravel the third secret. The third secret. Sister Lady Fatima made the decision not to reveal the third secret in her memoir from August 1941. In 1943, she became seriously ill with influenza and pleurisy. During a visit on the 15th of September 1943, Bishop Silva suggested that she write down the third secret to ensure it would be documented in case of her passing. Despite this suggestion, Lady Fatima hesitated, as she had heard Mary instruct her not to disclose the secret. Being bound by Carmelite obedience, which dictates that orders from superiors are to be seen as coming directly from God, she was conflicted about whose orders to follow. Eventually, in mid-October, Bishop Silva sent her a letter with a direct command to write down the secret. The third secret. Even after receiving this direct order, Lady Fatima continued to struggle. She shared that she was able to overcome this internal conflict after the Virgin Mary appeared to her in early January 1944 and instructed her, "Write what they command you, but do not give them what is given to you to understand of its meaning." The third part of the secret was transcribed at the behest of His Excellency, the Bishop of Leiria, and the Most Holy Mother on the 3rd of January 1944. In June 1944, the sealed envelope containing the third secret was handed over to Silva, where it remained until 1957, when it was eventually transferred to Rome. The bishop didn't open the sealed envelope. Lady Fatima made his pledge that it would certainly be unveiled and made public to the world upon her death, or in 1960, whichever came first. Cardinal Angelo Sodano declared on the 13th of May 2000, 83 years following the initial apparition of the Lady to the Children in the Cova da Iria, and 19 years after the assassination attempt on Pope John Paul II, that the third secret would at last be disclosed. In his statement, Cardinal Sodano hinted that the secret about the 20th century persecution of Christians reached its peak in the unsuccessful Pope John Paul II assassination attempt on the 13th of May 1981, the 64th anniversary of the first apparition of the Lady at Fatima. What exactly is this secret? Are we ready to witness the event of this secret unfold this 2024? The Vatican released the text of the third secret on June 26, 2000. It reads, "The third part of the secret was revealed at the Cova da Iria Fatima on the 13th of July, 1917. I write in obedience to you, my God, who commands me to do so through His Excellency, the Bishop of Leiria, and your most holy mother and mine." After the two-part which I have already explained, at the left of Our Lady and a little above, we saw an angel with a flaming sword in his left hand. Flashing, it gave out flames that looked as though they would set the world on fire, but they died out in contact with the splendor that Our Lady radiated towards him from her right hand. Pointing to the earth with his right hand, the angel cried out in a loud voice, "Penance! Penance! Penance!" And we saw in an immense light that is God, something similar to how people appear in a mirror when they pass in front of it, a bishop dressed in white. We had the impression that it was the Holy Father. Other bishops, priests, men and women religious went up a steep mountain, at the top of which there was a big cross of rough-hewn trunks, as of a cork tree with the bark. Before reaching there, the Holy Father passed through a big city, half in ruins and half trembling with halting step. Afflicted with pain and sorrow, he prayed for the souls of the corpses he met on his way. Having reached the top of the mountain, on his knees at the foot of the big cross, he was killed by a group of soldiers who fired bullets and arrows at him, and in the same way there died one after another the other bishops, priests, men and women religious, and various lay people of different ranks and positions. Beneath the two arms of the cross, there were two angels each with a crystal aspersorium in his hand, in which they gathered up the blood of the martyrs, and with it sprinkled the souls that were making their way to God. Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, who later became Pope Benedict XVI, shared a theological commentary alongside the text of the secret. In it, he emphasizes that the so-called third secret of Fatima may not reveal a great mystery or unveil the future as many have speculated. He distinguishes between public and private revelations and advises against interpreting the message as a prediction of specific future events. He goes on to discuss the symbolic nature of the images in the secret, suggesting that they may have been inspired by traditional religious imagery. Regarding the message itself, he reiterates the importance of prayer for the salvation of souls, as well as the call to penance and conversion. During a homily on Fatima on the 13th of May 2010, Pope Benedict remarked that the prophetic mission of Fatima was not yet complete. He expressed his hope that the centenary of the 1917 apparitions would contribute to the fulfillment of the prophecy of the triumph of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, bringing glory to the Blessed Trinity. Well, unlike the first two secrets, this one wasn't properly received. Controversy surrounding the third secrets. The Catholic Church in Portugal expressed criticism upon the release of the text, as it was read in Rome instead of at the Fatima shrine where the reported events occurred. According to the Times on the 29th of June 2000, the decision to keep the prophecy secret for 50 years provoked angry reactions from the Portuguese church, especially after it was revealed that there were no doomsday predictions. Italian journalist and media personality Antonio Socci, along with other critics, argue that the 4-page handwritten text of the third secret released by the Vatican in 2000 is either not the real secret or does not encompass the full secret. There are reasons they believe it is fake. Firstly, the text of the third secret released by the Vatican is handwritten on 4 sheets of paper. Father Joaquin Alonso, the official Fatima archivist for 16 years, mentioned in his book that Lucy wrote it on a single sheet of paper. According to Charles Fiore, Malachi Martin stated that the third secret was a single page written in Portuguese, which was translated by 2 young Portuguese seminarians. Tarcisio Cardinal Bertone later displayed Lady Fatima's document on an Italian television program, showing a single sheet of paper that had been divided vertically and horizontally, with Lady Fatima's handwriting on both sides. The 4 sheets were reproduced by the Vatican. Controversy surrounding the third secrets. Secondly, critics argue that the full third secret has not been released due to the belief that it was originally written in the form of a signed letter to the Bishop of Leiria. The text of the third secret released by the Vatican does not follow this format. Lady Fatima mentioned in an interview with Father Jongen on the 3rd of February 1946 that she had communicated the third part in a letter to the Bishop of Leiria. Canon Galamba, an advisor to the Bishop of Leiria, stated that Lady Fatima made the bishop promise to open the letter and share its contents with the world either upon her death or in 1960. Antonio Socci raised questions about the interpretation of the term letter. Thirdly, the Vatican released the text of the Third Secret, which does not contain any words attributed to the Blessed Virgin Mary. According to Socci, the Third Secret likely starts with the words, "In Portugal, the dogma of the faith will always be preserved," etc., which Lady Fatima included in her fourth memoir. However, these words are only mentioned as a footnote in the text released by the Vatican. In her fourth memoir, Lady Fatima stated that she would not reveal the third part. The interview, featured in the November 11, 1984 issue of Jesus magazine, discusses the ominous themes of the apocalypse, apostasy, and satanic infiltration within the Church. Cardinal Ratzinger confirmed that he had read the Third Secret, hinting at the significance of the novissimi, which pertains to the end times. He cautioned against the dangers that pose a threat to the faith and lives of Christians, as well as the world at large. Ratzinger stressed the importance of keeping the secret concealed for the time being to avoid misinterpretation as a mere sensational prophecy. Is he right the prophecy has to be kept hidden, or is the Pope hiding something from us? Additionally, in a different conversation with former Philippine ambassador to the Vatican, Howard D., Cardinal Ratzinger suggested that the messages of Akita and Fatima share similar themes. The Akita prophecy, in particular, portrays a bleak scenario of the devil's infiltration into the Church, resulting in internal conflicts among high-ranking officials like cardinals and bishops, along with the desecration of sacred spaces such as churches and altars. On May 13, 2000, Cardinal Sodano announced the forthcoming revelation of the Third Secret, hinting at its connection to the persecution of Christians in the 20th century, culminating in the failed assassination attempt on Pope John Paul II in 1981. In a radio broadcast, Lady Fatima's canonization, Malachi Martin offered his perspective by suggesting that the Third Secret can only be comprehended in the context of widespread apostasy within the clergy and laity of the Catholic Church. This disclosure sheds light on the grim and unsettling prophecies concerning the Church's future. Lady Fatima's canonization. On the third anniversary of her death, February 13, 2008, Pope Benedict XVI announced that he would waive the usual 5-year waiting period before opening a cause for beatification in Sister Lady Fatima's case. Then, on February 13, 2017, Lady Fatima was given the title Servant of God, marking the first significant step towards her canonization. The Vatican presented the Positio on the life, virtues, and reputation for holiness of Sister Lucia de Jesus dos Santos to the Congregation of the Causes of Saints for examination, to determine if she lived a life of heroic virtue. Finally, on June 22, 2023, Pope Francis declared her venerable. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up, drop a comment in the comments section, and turn on your notification bell.